In this video, we'll be dealing with inference-based questions in reading comprehension. So we'll look at what it's about, how you should approach them, how you should solve them. So in inference-based questions, you are asked to make logical deductions from the passage. So these are indirect questions. You need to imply information from the passage. You need to essentially read between the lines. Now the inference drawn must be supported by the information provided in the passage. So these are basically logical conclusions from the text of the passage. Alright, so inference-based questions are usually worded in a couple of different ways. So the moment you see questions worded like this, you should be able to identify that these are inference-based questions. So first is, which of the following is the author most likely to agree with? Which of the following can be deduced from the passage? Which among the following has been implied in the passage? What is the author trying to imply by saying that? And a line from the passage would be quoted. What do you infer from the line? And a particular line would be quoted. Which of the following is suggested by the information of the passage? So from the you'll have a couple of options following this, and you would have to select the most appropriate option. Alright, so the best way to approach inference-based questions is to read the after you have a thorough understanding of the passage. When you read the question, you have to rephrase the question and be able to identify that you have to draw inference. After that, you should start eliminating options. Rather than trying to read the passage and note down the number of inferences is not a good thing to do, because that will waste a lot of time. Rather, you should start eliminating choices. Alright, so there are a couple of ways to eliminate options, these which would make them more likely to be incorrect. So first is, the option must not restate or rephrase information from the passage without adding anything to it, which means that if something is just a restatement or rephrasing information from the passage, it is not essentially an inference, right? An inference would bring in some new information on the basis of what is already there in the passage. Right. The next is to strike out options that contradict information from the passage. So if the option is contradicting what is given in the passage, immediately strike it out. Third, options that use extreme language such as never or all are not likely to be correct. Usually the information provided on which your inference-based questions are asked are nuanced statements. So those options which have extreme words like never, all are not likely to be the correct answers. Alright. Eliminate options that are unsupported or irrelevant to the passage. So I told you that inference is some new information that has support or that is based on the information already provided in the passage. If you don't see it being supported, or you see it or you see that it's beyond the scope of the passage, then just eliminate it. Alright. You may have some background knowledge or some outside information about the passage or what the passage is dealing with. Do not allow yourself to be influenced by it. Just make sure that the inference can be based from the information already provided in the passage. So be careful to not deviate from the passage. Alright. Now let's look at a few illustrations. Illustration 1. Anyone who loves movies is likely to love Cinema Paradiso. And there is one scene where the projectionist finds that he can reflect the movie out of the window in his booth and out across the town square so that the images can float on a wall, there in the night above the heads of the people. I saw a similar thing happen one night in Venice in 1972 when they showed Chaplin's City Lights in the Piazza San Marco to more than 10,000 people. And it was then I realized the same thing the movie argues. Yes, it is tragic that the big screen has been replaced by the little one. But the real shame is that the big screens did not grow even bigger. grow so vast that they were finally on the same scale as the movies they were reflecting. Alright, let's look at the question. Which of the following can be inferred from the passage? Option A, Cinema Paradiso is a film about a projectionist. Option B, the author has been to Venice. Option C, Cinema Paradiso is a great film. Option D, the size of theatre screens has increased to reflect the scale of the films. Alright, so the answer is option B, but let's understand how to arrive at it. So we will, as I explained earlier, the better way to solve such questions is to start eliminating options. So let's start doing that. So if you look at the options, you can immediately see that option C is talking about the greatness of the film, right? Cinema Paradiso is a great film. But no such thing about the film being great or not has been mentioned in the passage. So this is unsupported information, right? It's an inference that has not been supported by the information from the passage. So we can strike off option C. That leaves us with A, B and D. Now let's look at option D. The size of theatre screens has increased to reflect the scale of the films. However, the last line of the passage tells us the exact opposite thing. It tells us that the screen has not expanded to match the scale of the films, right? So it's contradicting the passage. So we can strike this one off as well. Now we are left with option A and option B. Alright, if you look at option A, you might want to refer to the first line of the passage. Yeah, it does talk about there being a scene which has a projectionist in it. However, that is not enough to imply whether the film was solely about a projectionist, right? So be careful to not lose sight of these small things. So, which makes this option also to be incorrect. So option A is incorrect as well. Now we are only left with option B, which is our answer. That the author has been to Venice. Now we'll just refer back to the paragraph, to the passage once again to cross check. So if you read the second line, I saw a similar thing happen one night in Venice in 1972. From this, we can immediately understand that this is possible only if the author had been in Venice at that point. So we can infer that the author has visited Venice or been in Venice at least once, right? Therefore, option B is the correct is what we can infer from the passage. It's the most appropriate answer. All right, this was a simple one. Let's look at the next illustration. A Wharton window refers to the range of ideas considered to be acceptable in public discourse and hence likely to be adopted as policy. It is also known as the window of discourse. Politicians in any democracy generally do not propose ideas that fall far beyond the range of the Wharton window, as those ideas could be considered extreme and unacceptable to the voting public. Such public pressure can also discourage scholars from pursuing ideas that are considered too radical, thus perpetuating existing ideas on various policy issues. The idea is named after American public policy expert Joseph P. Overton. Alright, which of the following can be inferred from the passage? Option A. All politicians choose their ideas in accordance with the corresponding reaction of the people. In this, the first option uses an extreme word, which is all. The passage tells us that politicians tend to do it. Politicians do it. However, we cannot make a generalized assumptions that each and every politician abides by the range that the Wharton window covers, right? Therefore, option A can be struck off as it uses extreme language. So the answer is not likely to be correct. Now let's look at the next option. A Wharton window got its name from the public policy expert Joseph Overton. Now this is something that is outrightly stated in the passage, right? The last sentence of the passage. It is not telling us anything new. It is not deriving anything or deducing anything from the passage. It's just a restatement of information given in the passage, which means that it is not an inference. So option B is also incorrect. All right, option C. A gradual shift has been observed in the Overton window over the past decade in the Indian political discourse. Option C is also incorrect since it is bringing in outside information into the passage. What this option is talking about is beyond the scope of the passage. Therefore, this option is wrong as well. So this is what I had been talking about earlier, that do not let background information that you may have about the subject of the subject matter of the passage influence you. So watch out for these things. Option C is incorrect. And nothing about India has been spoken of at all in the passage, right? So the moment you see something like this, you should strike that option off. Now let's look at the last option. The reaction of the public holds significance for a politician while deciding which ideas to pursue in the public sphere. Now we already know that option D has to be the correct one since the other three have been eliminated. However, let's look at what the passage says about this inference. So if you read the second line, it talks about how if something is likely to be considered unacceptable by the voting public, politicians don't tend to pursue those ideas in the public sphere, right? This would only happen if politicians accorded that much importance to the opinion of the voting public. Only because the public is finding it unacceptable is the politician deciding not to pursue those ideas in their political discourse, right? So this is why we can infer that the reaction of the public, the opinion of the public has great importance, has significance for a politician when he's deciding which ideas he wants to pursue in the public sphere. So this is the correct inference, option D. That's what this also reads. Option A can be eliminated since it makes an absolutist statement about all politicians. Option B is incorrect as it is not an inference but a restatement of the information of the passage. Option C can be eliminated since it goes beyond the scope of the text of the passage and the logical conclusions that may be drawn from it. So option D is the answer. Alright, with that we come to the end of the video. Good luck.